I think this guy's going to be a really good fit, and I'm not sure we're spending, believe it or not, enough time on that. I think initially there was a lot of, I don't want that guy from people. He's not a good fit. He's not a good locker room guy. He's not a, whatever. And now there's not nearly enough of the, what? Like if this guy does, doesn't go out of his way to be disruptive in the sense that he's, chasing all that lost money, and he just plays his role, does whatever is asked of him, and is the vet that everyone knows he's capable of being, and by the way, does everything that so far he has indicated he's going to do. Like, so far, no problems. He's been great. He's been a model teammate, and Al Horford loves him, and he gets along with everybody there. If he's this guy, I think he's going to be a wonderful addition to this team.
Yeah, I just don't think it's very often you see starting caliber point guards signed for $6 million. So, yeah. Right, just that point alone is like, for a team that had a real point guard depth issue post free agency, entering the draft and then post free agency, like, you looked at the Celtics point guard depth chart when it was, Marcus, Pritchard, Chris Dunn, like, Carson Edwards, you're like, this is iffy. So just adding a starting caliber talent is obviously an upgrade. But I thought it was really interesting when they entered this postseason, the one thing that both Brad and Ime made abundantly clear to everybody were their roles. And I think we heard so much of that last year where, guys didn't really know who their roles, what their roles were, how they fit, all that stuff. I think it was Jared Weiss, could have been Jay King. It was one of the Athletic writers. When they talked about that signing, they said, listen, Ime in the meeting and Brad made it very clear to Schroeder that Marcus Smart is the starting point guard. There's not going to be any of this baloney once we get into camp. Like, your role here is our primary backup point guard. Either you accept that or you don't. And he signed on for it. So I think that's done wonders just initially of, everyone's entering the season knowing what the pecking order is, knowing what their role is. If they get the 2019 OKC six-man Dennis Schroder, it elevates their ceiling. There's no, he was almost a 18, 19 point per game player off their bench. He accepted that role. It was great. Where I think we don't know is like, okay, is he going to want to play now that he signed for $5 million? Is he going to try to force things as the sixth man to try to like overcompensate and show the rest of the league, hey, I'm worthy of a legit contract next year? In my opinion, he's going to get that contract if he is able to play within that role and thrive like when he was on OKC. So while it's great that he has a skill set that they need, he seems to accept his role. What we don't know yet is once he's given the keys of those second unit, is he going to only look for himself? And I think he was one of the guys in the first preseason game. You could see he was overpassing every time he touched the ball. It was like he wanted to stress that he was going to be a facilitator, and that was awesome. But when we're a month or two into the season, like, how does that change if the second unit, like if nobody else can score, is he going to try to force things and be something that maybe the team doesn't need for him in his ideal role? That's just what we don't know yet.
Well, I'll point out, though, because he's going to give them something they don't have a ton of, and that's guys that can get into the paint with the ball in their hands. Like, they just have, like I love Smart. Smart's not blowing by too many guys, right? Pritchard's the same way. Neesmith takes about 3 dribbles that you're pretty much done at that point. Tatum and Brown, we know they can do that. We've seen it a lot. Anybody that wants to talk about the first step of Jalen and Jason being slow, you're not watching basketball correctly. But what Schroeder gives you is that speed element with the ball in his hands that they don't have. And what's going to be so important, I think Green did a great job mentioning the chemistry he has with Al Horford from their past days in Atlanta. That's going to be big. I didn't think about how those two guys off the bench or, playing on a unit together with maybe some guys that, that aren't Jalen and Jason, how important that's going to be. But they're going to need that skill from him desperately because their guards don't have speed. Right. Pritchard's a crafty player. I love him to death. I think he's awesome, but he's not going to blow by, get too many guys. Smart doesn't either. Smart's a bully ball point guard. And we'll see, how the new Marcus Smart looks as a primary distributor. I'm excited for what we'll see. Schroeder needs to be aggressive, especially with that second unit, because again, with the lack of scoring, but he gives you the ability to get inside the paint, which they've lacked. I love Kyrie. He was part of that. He could do that at will when he felt like it. Kemba at first could do it, but after the injury, rough. Yeah. And that was the thing with Isaiah Thomas that I don't think people appreciate enough. Isaiah at his height could still find ways to get into the paint and draw the attention to himself. And that's such a crucial part of being a point guard in today's NBA. Like, it's not just about distributing the basketball. You got to score too. Now, there are guys that are way the other way that are really score heavy and don't do a lot of distributing. Dennis is going to have to do both. But in this particular instance, he gives them something that they don't currently have. And that's why that's why I'm worried for Pritchard a little bit. And I'm worried about Pritchard's role because Dennis is going to give them that. Pritchard can't. So does Pritchard get relegated to like an off-ball 2 guard? He's too small for that position, right? So how they make this work, again, Ime and Brad and everybody else has got to figure that out. But I think Dennis's role is very clear in this team. And to go from Jeff Teague, who is an NBA champion,
I know.
Dennis Schroeder is a real nice pickup for Boston, no question.
Yeah. And to your point about, the previous Celtics guards like Isaiah and Kyrie and healthy Kemba, if you looked at how those offenses ranked, those were top 5 offenses in the league because they were able to get into the paint. You look at last year where they were the middle of the pack, you didn't have that same sort of consistent attacking, drawing in the defense, kicking it out to shooters. That just didn't exist. So I am interested to see if he can keep that up when the games matter. But I think it is important that we all remember he's going to shoot, mid 40s from the floor and 33% from 3. So I think, there are zones on the floor where I want the majority of his shots to come from. I'm down for him floaters, layups, attacking the rim, things like that. Where I just fear is you could tell in that preseason game when I think it was either the beginning of the 4th quarter, the end of the 3rd, when like nobody could score, he was settling for the 3s. And those are the types of issues that I saw last year that we saw on Monday is like when they were going through their scoring drought with that second unit, where was the attacking of the basket? Everybody was settling for the 3s. And I think those are the things that you can see on film and correct. But again, like, God forbid we have another injury-plagued season. I feel much better about potentially sliding in someone like Schroeder in as a starting point guard, as you mentioned, as a Jeff Teague or a Pritchard as a rookie. So I'm excited, but there's also questions we just don't know because we haven't seen him play.